Good evening, everybody. And today, hopefully, everybody had a good trading day. Today, we're going to be looking at another stock besides the usual, and that is Hood Stock, basically Robinhood Markets, INC. Now, the interesting thing about Robinhood Markets is that it usually tops at around 48, but we saw a drop today at about 44 to 43. Which is a pretty good drop, especially if you're going long at it. So let's go ahead and back up on this and see what we're talking about. All right, so if you go back over here to earlier today, so let's go all the way back. All right, you can see right there we were at 48, 47, and then it started dropping. 45, 46, 45, 44. And then, of course, is right now at 44.72. Now, the reason for this, if we go back and look at some of the news for Robinhood Market, is because of one of the big inside investors just sold like millions worth of stock. So, of course, there was that initial drop. We can go here and look that up. Why Robinhood stock is down today. It says shares of financial services company Robinhood fell 8.7% in the afternoon session after stocks pulled back. Amid fresh concerns about trade tariffs, the pullback followed comments from the president clarifying the scope of his administration's 25% tariffs on Venezuela. Now, it's interesting because you think, well, what does that have to do with a stock like this? But I guess, it makes it so that certain people are a little bit more skittish when it comes to investing their money in a stock. But if you notice down here what the market is telling us, it says Robinhood shares are extremely volatile and have had 50 moves greater than 5% over the last year. In that context, today's move indicates the market considers this news meaningful, but not something that will fundamentally change its perception of the business. The previous big move we wrote about was 2 days ago when the stock gained 9.9% on the news of the stock's rebounding, following a report from the Wall Street Journal, uh, talking about how some of the tariffs were announced. Now, the key word there that we want to make sure we look at is the fact that fundamentally nothing changed with the company. So, what does that mean for us? That means that, well, eventually these things will probably settle, and we can see a nice uprise when it comes to the stock again. Matter of fact, let's look at the 5 day. So if you look at the 5 day right here, if we go back to March the 21st, it was at 43.45. So we've been here before. And then what happened once things settled down? March the 24th, 45.86. March the 24th, 10 a.m., 48.72. So we've been here before. We can go back a month. Same thing. March the 5th, we're talking about 48.28. And then we got the drop right here. Rises up again, goes up, and it goes back down. So one thing about this particular stock is it's very volatile. But if you look at the 6 month view of everything, at one point in time it was $24.63. So we're still up. Not only are we up, we're up about 99.42%. So when you look at it from the long range, even though you have some volatility and some ups and downs, Hood stock or Robinhood stock is gradually growing to the point that even if you look at it from a year to date standpoint, Let me see. Let me go ahead and click on that. A year to date standpoint. It's pretty much been doing the same thing all year, which means it wouldn't be unrealistic to hold out at something like this and wait for it to hit that 50 mark or even that 60 mark again. Right here, where in February the 13th, it was at $65.35. And this is what I really like, that whole 1 year mark is up 132% still. So we're still doing good. At one point in time, the stock was $19.11. And if you look at the 5 year mark right there, it's still up 17.71 cents. And of course, we know that's a lot of times because as soon as a new IPO starts, they usually overprice it and then it has to go ahead and fix itself. But still, this right here, that 1 day mark, is just a small step in an overall incline in this stock. So this is definitely something that we're going to keep an eye on as well. As far as the volume, talking about around 44 million, average volume 34 million. Let's look at the PE ratio, 28.67. That's still big time right there. And here, the 1 year target estimate. And this is the part that you really want to pay attention to. The 1 year target estimate for Robinhood stock is $66.68. So right now it is at $43. So that lets us know that we still have a lot of space to make up here on the incline. So that's definitely something worth going long in. So when I saw this dropping, I went ahead and I jumped in it, and I decided to go ahead and just sit back and wait, because once it hits that 1 year target estimate, we're all sitting good. So that's definitely something keep attention to as well. If you notice right here, the 52-week range, $13.98 to $66.91. That's if that's not a good range right there, I don't know what it is. Even with the days range, 43.80 to 48, that's what we're looking for. So let's go ahead and make sure we keep stocks like this on our radar, because may not be that quick fix, but it's definitely a long-term investment worth taking. Now, of course, this isn't financial advice, but this is still, something that's very interesting to look at. But of course, we gotta go check out on our old friend Lucid and see what's going on with that. So let's go ahead and look at Lucid Group. Now, the crazy thing about Lucid is it just stopped moving altogether. It started at around 244, went down to 235, and just stayed there between 234 and 235. And it's crazy because when you look at the volume is not bad. Volume 53,079,547. Average volume 92,694,594. Yet there's no movement, which could point to market manipulation. Basically, you have people out here who are purposely buying and selling just enough to keep the stock exactly where it's at, because they don't want it to go too high and they know it can only go but so low. So this is one of those things where I think with Lucid, you just gotta sit back and let the big corporations who are manipulating the market, go ahead and figure out what they're gonna do before us little guys can decide where we want to go with it. But yeah, it's messed up that they're doing that, but that's what comes with it. The end of the day is all about those big hedge funds and major corporations. But yeah, those are just two stocks. And let me see, before we head out, we can go ahead and take a look at XRP. Oh, cryptocurrency firm. Now, right now, XRP is at $2.36. Now, one thing about XRP, we know it likes to hang out around 249, 250. So I'm looking at this from the standpoint of, as soon as I see a zero after that 3, and it says $2.30, I'm definitely getting in because we know what direction is going after that. We already know what the low is between 230 and 220, but we also know that high likes to stay around 248, 250. So it's one of those where you want to just wait for it, and then once it finally gets there, then maybe jump in. Crazy thing about it, when it comes to crypto and XRP, look at that volume right there, 3,424,061. And even when it comes to the 24-hour value, 3.42 billion. All currencies, 3.42 billion. So it's definitely a lot of movers and shakers, moving around with it. Circulating supply, 58.21 billion. Market cap, 137.566 billion. 52-week high, $3.38. 52-week low, 39 cents. So we can see right there, we still got room for movement. Some people are saying that XRP may hit $10 one day. Who knows if that's true or not? You can never really tell with crypto, but it's still something to pay attention to. Really doesn't give the estimate range, but that's just something else to pay close attention to when it comes to trading. Maybe in a cryptocurrency more than you're in the regular stocks or not. But yeah, other than that, stocks most active. Of course, you got your Nvidia, Tesla. Ford actually jumped back up. It was at 950, it's at 1030 right now. Palantir, everybody's talking about Palantir. I could care less about Palantir. How about that? Neo, the Chinese market, everything's in the red right now. Lucid, New Holdings, Intel. Intel's supposed to be doing something soon. I think they either looking for they're tottering around with maybe getting a new CEO. It's interesting because when you think of Intel, it's usually right up there with the AMDs and the NVIDIAs as far as the chips, yet they're still stuck at $23.42. While, companies like NVIDIA are at $113.76. And then AMD's, wherever it's at, $110.19. Ooh, that dropped down. They had hit like 117. So that's something. Wonder if that's going to go down any lower. But these big time stocks, it's hard to make money with those unless you got thousands of shares, and then you got to pay millions of dollars to get those thousands of shares anyway. Tesla still up at $272.06. So that's something to keep an eye on. Let me see, is Microsoft on here anywhere? No, I don't see Microsoft. Maybe Microsoft is kind of slowed up. I know it dropped, pretty good much. Trending now? Yeah, the same usual. Nothing special at all. See, Robinhood markets, 44.73. Now Robinhood is already starting to go back up. That's what we like to see. Yeah, but other than that, everything else is doing its thing. So, keep trading, stay positive, make sure that you check your risks, don't do anything too crazy, and hopefully everybody has a good day. And don't forget to like, don't forget to follow. This is Mike Dub 27 Traders, and I am out. Deuces.